Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi, Steve Arterburn here, and welcome to Life Recovery Today. Got a special guest today, David Zailer. He is the founder of Operation Integrity, and he's written some great recovery books. And he's got some insights that I think are going to be helpful. But before we get to David, I want to challenge you on something that, well, it's kind of important. You know, when we talk about surrendering, as my wife says, when we humble down and surrender, do you ever think about the need to surrender the desire for comfort? You know, a lot of times people equate comfort with peace. But I got to tell you, if I'm always doing stuff that make me more comfortable, I'm sure going to miss an awful lot of opportunities to do some amazing things with my life. I don't know of anybody that doesn't have a little bit of discomfort when they get up and speak to a bunch of people. It's a little uncomfortable. I know some people, great speakers, who are very uncomfortable, but they work through that and then they speak and they connect and lives are changed. I know people that are very uncomfortable going to work every day, and guess what? They do it anyway. They do it uncomfortable. Now, if you are a person that's paralyzed with fear, in the recovery world, we'll say things like, do it afraid. In other words, don't be paralyzed by the fear. Go out there, walk into it, face it, and you'll be really surprised at how you can overcome that fear with the right kind of support and help. Well, I want to say this, do things uncomfortably. Because if we always are seeking comfort and ease, then we restrict the kind of things that we can do. Rather than comfort, I need courage. I need courage to do that uncomfortable thing of confronting somebody that needs confrontation. Or I need the courage to say, I can't enable you to do this anymore. Or I need the courage to say one of the two most difficult things to say in the universe. One is Worcestershire sauce, and the other is I need help. Is it ever comfortable asking for help? And especially, it's uncomfortable if you're a helper, if you're somebody that's supposed to be helping other people. But it could be the beginning of a whole new level of wisdom and insight and helping others, and also connecting with the God of the universe. So let's just be uncomfortable for a bit. We'll take a break and come right back with David.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here. My special guest is David Zailer. David, he wrote a book long time ago entitled Our Journey Home. I think I endorsed that book, didn't I, David?
Yes, sir, you did. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And since that time, you've gone on, you founded this organization called Operation Integrity, which, boy, do we ever need integrity in this world. But thanks for joining me on Life Recovery Today. Appreciate it. Glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
David, people that get into recovery don't do that because they did a research paper on recovery. They have a life experience. And so tell us what happened in your life. Tell us about the downside before the upside began.
Well, I had been struggling with some form of addiction since 9 or 10 years old.
Well, how did you struggle with addiction at 9?
Well, I would sneak my father's pornography and sneak his cigarettes. At the time, I just was overcome with the guilt and shame of it all, understandably so.
Yeah.
What I didn't understand was the repeated nature of it, and also the things that had precipitated in my, things from my family, some childhood experiences. Trauma is really the effective word. Were big setups for me, and those were it was the cigarettes and the porn were kind of the tripwire. In my late teens and early 20s, I discovered alcohol. Then in my 20s, I discovered cocaine and heroin. And I was primarily, most of the time, functional in the fact that I would get up in the morning, I would go to work, I would pay my bills. Actually, I started a business, was doing pretty good. But periodically, I would just mess it all up and break all my promises. And that continued until November, actually it was October of '99. I got arrested for a small amount of drugs. And the judge gave me the opportunity to do a diversion program. And I still drank and used for a while until I got into that program. And that program combined counseling with a trained addiction counselor, and it compelled me to go to 12-step programs.
And that was the beginning of true recovery?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, prior to that, I had gone to pastors. I had grown up in church.
Yeah.
And I would do my best to confess and repent.
Sure.
And stopping was never my problem. I could do that.
Yeah. Right.
What I couldn't do is I couldn't seem to stay stopped.
Yeah.
And
one of the things we tell people is that motivation is the least effective predictor of success, because a lot of people, they want things to be different really badly, and they're really motivated, but they just don't do anything to maintain it. Now I want to go back to something, and it may be relevant, and it might not. But when you were 9 years old, there were cigarettes and there was pornography from your father. And some 9-year-olds would have seen these things and they would have felt, oh, wow, I would hate to do that because I'd get in trouble from my parents, or I'm so close to my parents. I mean, they wouldn't think it in these rational terms, but it'd be there. I'm so close, I don't want to destroy my relationship, or I don't want to do something that would hurt them. But you didn't have any of those things that kept you from doing it. Was there any kind of deprivation from parents? Was there any kind of disconnection that might have made you more vulnerable to picking up the cigarettes and the pornography? Have you thought about that, or is there anything there?
Why, sure. I mean, I've been sober since November 19th, 1999, and over this 22 plus years, I've had to do that retroactive work. And my father was a profound narcissist, so very disconnected. And And he was also tremendously admired in the church setting, revered. He was a church musician, very much a religious rock star back in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
But his narcissism had a huge effect on our family. My mother
I'm sure.
drifted into deep, deep depression. So she was often, generally medicated most of the time, in and out of hospitals. She ended up taking her life
I'm so
at
sorry.
one point. Well, thank you. It's been a number of years, and I've worked to understand that. I understand that her actions were based in pain
Yeah.
and hopelessness. And to answer your question, I think I certainly had a sense that it was the wrong thing to do, but my father was doing it.
Yeah.
I certainly had a sense of guilt and remorse, but I also understood that when I looked at the women in pornography, I felt this kind of pseudo manufactured connection. And they were pretty and attractive. And of course, at 9, 10 years old, I'm just infatuated with their physical beauty. And so there's an intoxication factor going on there. And I think one of the things, to put it very simply for me, from whether it was my childhood addictions or the addictions that I struggled with as a young adult, is that when the only thing that I knew when I was not drunk or when I was not loaded on drugs is that I was miserable.
Yeah.
I was miserable at church.
Right.
I was miserable at work. I was miserable by myself. And so even though I knew the things that I was doing was wrong, I couldn't stay stopped because it was the only escape I had from the misery.
Sure. Well, now let me ask you this. You got into recovery, 99, it's a long time ago. Having been in recovery that long, is there anything that has emerged that maybe you wouldn't find written in the big book or in the 12 and 12 or anything like that? Is there some piece of wisdom that you've latched onto that you might share with us, or some concept that you think is just so important for people to understand now that you have been in recovery for so long?
I think the simplicity of one day at a time
Uh-huh.
is a profound, essential baseline understanding. I also have come to understand and truly appreciate the process and the presence. For so long, God was a statement of dogma, a belief system that was supposed to be comforting and would give me all these great things and make me grow up to be such a great guy, but it never did. What I found was that when I realized that God was a trustworthy presence that was always going to be with me and had always been with me, and that long before I learned to appreciate that, God's presence was with me in the fact that I was protected, because quite honestly, the last 5-10 years of my addictive shenanigans, they were so deadly that, and I did have overdoses. And I was in very, very dangerous situations, and yet I was protected and I survived.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never thought about that, but even today, 22 years into this recovery, I realized that all of that was a gift that was given to me long before I ever understood it, long before I could see it. So the value.
Well, let me just interrupt you there, because
Sure.
I have to go to this break,
Yeah.
and we want to hear more about that. And we want to hear about Operation Integrity and what all is involved there.
Okay.
But you're listening to and watching Life Recovery Today, and we'll take this short break and come right back for more David Zailer and his story and Operation Integrity.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis, someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. Steve Arterburn here and my special guest, David Zailer. By the way, before we get back to David, Life Recovery Bible, one of the top 5 best-selling Bibles in December on the Christian bestseller list. It's always in the top 10 every month. And if you don't have one, here it is, 12 steps integrated into God's Word. It's not like bringing God's Word into the 12 steps. It's taking the 12 steps right back into the Bible where they started. Many of you know that Dr. Bob would say things like, well, we didn't just invent these steps, we got them. We discovered them right out of the good book. And if you don't have a copy, you call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Well, David Zailer is the founder of Operation Integrity. He's been in recovery since 1999. David, tell us about Operation Integrity. What's that all about?
Well, back in about 2002 or 3, probably 2003, the church I was attending suggested that I start a group to help men with porn addiction. And I said, absolutely not. I had no desire to do that. But they wouldn't let me off the hook. And for probably a year, they just kept working it and henpecking me till finally I said, okay, fine, whatever. And me and 3 guys sat down and we looked at each other. And I said, guys, I don't know what to do. Except to kind of walk you through the 12 steps. And they said, okay. And that's what we did. And I would go home and I would make notes of these incredible conversations that we would have. And then I began to compile those notes that was our first book, When Lost Men Come Home, Not for Men Only. And it was about that same time that it was suggested that we incorporate and become a nonprofit, which we did. By that time, our group had blown up to, a few dozen guys. And then, but at some point we realized that we were, and this was really kind of something in my own heart and something that I worked through in my conversations with Jesus, and that the decision was made, we were going to talk about addiction. Not just about porn addiction or sex addiction. Those are always things that we hope to be lead in the conversation on. But we want to talk about addiction in general. Talking about the food addictions, religious addiction, codependency, and in addition to the chemical addictions, and realizing that, there are some addictions, like me as an alcoholic, I started to get better when I quit drinking. Right. And I could eliminate drinking, and I have to keep eliminating drinking one day at a time.
Yeah.
But with something like food or sex, you cannot eliminate this from your life.
Yeah.
We have to learn to have a healthy relationship with it. So this has been the calling for Operation Integrity, to educate our 4 core values, and then I tend to ramble, forgive me, but our 4 core values.
What are your 4 core values? What are they?
Education, community, the inner journey, where we're endorsing using the 12 steps in conjunction with therapy or counseling. And then the last one is the principles of spiritual formation, which are in line with the 12 steps.
Good. I like those core values. Let me ask you a question. As a Christian in recovery, what do you say to folks when they say, why do you talk about a higher power. Why aren't you talking about Jesus?
You know, an awful lot of people talk about God and Jesus with great eloquence, but in their practical life, these things they talk about are not a higher power. The conversation of the higher power has to do with surrendering our ego. It has to do with understanding that we will never solve our problems on our own. We're going to have help, not just from other people, but we're going to have some supernatural help. And Steve, I'll be honest with you, I'd grown to church all my life. And early in recovery, I basically said, I'm done with this. And I quit going to church. And I wanted nothing to do with it. I had been rejected by so many churches and pastors. I'd been kicked out of Bible studies because I was not successfully repenting. Oh yeah, I mean, believe me, I could still feel a little bit of the angst coming up. Forgive me. And I said, God, I don't know who you are. I said, but if you don't help me, I'm going to die. And at that point, I heard a voice. Now, I don't know if I heard it with my ears or if it just resonated in my heart, but I heard a voice say to me, all right, David, now I can go to work. And I immediately sensed this presence. And that presence stayed with me for months and months and months, and slowly and gently helped me to understand over a long process of probably 6, 7, 8 months that this thing that I called my friend the voice had the face and the history of Jesus.
Isn't that incredible? Yeah.
Yep. And that's what I said. And I remember when it happened. I was sitting in my office and I jumped up from my chair and I said, oh, bleep, I'm a Christian. And it was the last thing that I wanted to do because I didn't understand. I always thought being a Christian was kind of a belief system. You know, something you kind of signed up for because you were an American.
Yeah, not a relationship.
Not a relationship.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you say to folks that say 12 steps, you don't need 12 steps, you just need one step? What do you say to that criticism?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've said that all along. Well, you know, the 12 steps, and I think Dr. Bob said it, I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous, they're the first ones that package the 12 steps the way they are. But they didn't invent them. My understanding is that, you know, that Dr. Bob and Bill W. just were observing what people were doing who were being successful. And I actually do a teaching on the 12 steps, but 12 steps is, it truly is a spiritual journey that's done in very practical steps at the level of the inner life. Steps 1, 2, and 3 are all inner life processes. Steps 4 through 9 are action steps. And they're action steps based on healing our relationships with ourselves, other people, and with God. And, so, you know, so many struggling Christians who are taught and told by their religious leaders to poo-poo the 12 steps. But if they were to give the 12 steps a sincere and honest try with an open heart, they would see that it really is a calling to follow their Savior.
Yeah. No question. And it's obvious that many people that have spoken against the 12 steps have no idea what the 12 steps are.
Right.
So as we close this up, I want you, let's say someone's bored with their recovery, or they're stagnant in their recovery, and it's just not much happening there. What do you say? How do you either kick this thing in gear, jump start it, or get it going, really maybe for the first time ever? What do you say to that person?
You know what? Go help somebody else. One of the things I love to do is there's an indigent detox center down in Costa Mesa. Every couple of months I just go down there. Most of these guys, they're off the streets. They have people in the alleys and the homeless around there waiting to get in. But I go down there and I'll take a couple of cartons of cigarettes and I'll go down there and I'll talk to the guys. For one, it's a reminder to me that, because that's where I could have ended up. I didn't end up there, thank goodness, but I was on my way there. But there has never, in my 22 years, there's never been anything that helped change my attitude from the negative to the positive more than helping someone else.
Yeah. Well, I think that is part of the wisdom of the 12 steps in that it doesn't leave you at the end of the 12 steps basking in the glow of all of your hard work. It really does inspire you to go and share with others, but also to stay current and to be sure that you're continuing to take an inventory, admit it when you're wrong. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when we come back from this break. Okay. David, God bless you. Thank you for sharing your story. Thanks for all you do. And I hope and pray that somebody hears your story and realizes you can go from hopeless and helpless to a life of meaning and purpose. We'll be back.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. Well, I mentioned that it's important that we're sharing what we have, but also that we stay current. And staying current means that we continue to take a personal inventory of ourselves. And whenever we're wrong, we promptly admit it. Now, I got to tell you, I always admit it when I realize I'm wrong. The problem is I don't realize I'm wrong enough. I need people to give me feedback. I need people to say, hey, maybe you could do that in a little better way. I hope you have those kind of people in your life, because we can never, ever stop growing, being aware of what we need to make right, and it all comes from that humble surrender to God. I'll see you next time right here on Life Recovery Today.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.